This is a tree of life. And whether you understand it or not, or see that there is more than one tree here, they all have a very peculiar connection with the world of Genshin Impact. We have no idea why there are 7 Archons, who Paimon is, or what the Abyss and the Fatui are planning to do. All this might be leading to one thing. But if we can decipher what the Tree of Life means in Genshin world, not only that one thing, we will have a much better idea of this world. So, watch closely until the very end because it will not only explain what the Archons are there for, but also why everyone is running a race to reach the throne. A Game of Thrones, I would say. The whole inception of this madness comes from Nahida, who dropped a fat lore bomb at the very end of the Sumeru conquest, which made me question my existence and turn my brain into mush.
Oh, my head. Oh, what the hell? What kind of knowledge drop is this, Nahida? Huh?
Nahida herself said the Fatui has classified 4 people as descenders. While we are the 4th and our twin is nowhere to be found on the list, the sustainer of heavenly principles that blocked our way was the first descender of this world. In Genshin world, there are many books talking about mythical beings and places in this world. Among them, there is a particular book found in Economia called Before Sun and Moon. It mentions a being called Fans, or the Primordial One. And this Primordial One is said to have come from outer space during the era of when dragons ruled this world. They then separated the world and created the human realm, giving life to all the humans in Teyvat. Which means they were essentially the original descender of the Genshin world and making her the sustainer of heavenly principles. Both Fans from Greek mythology and Pengu from Chinese mythology have similar origins and are closely related to the Primordial One. So you can't just ignore one while focusing on the other one. That's why we have to be a little flexible. In Greek creation myths, from the primordial chaos, Kronos, the personification of time, created a silver egg of the universe. From it, Fans was born. Since Kronos is the one who made the egg, time and space principles would apply to all things that follow. As such, life and death were created. Pengu's mythos also has similar lines that say everything that is not immortal shall die. And then he also died separating heaven and earth, giving life to everything in this world. Now, here's an interesting bit of mythology stuff. As ridiculous and boring as Gnostic mythos are, they have a relatively decent role to play in Genshin world. The general story goes like this. There is Monad, the purest god, who is more of a concept than an actual god. They created Sofia, the final Aeon. Then she went on to split herself into 2. By doing so, she created another existence. This was Demiurge, an imperfect being who is ignorant and has a superiority complex. Then he created the mortal world to trap humans from reaching enlightenment that he couldn't attain. Also, appointed the Archons to keep humans in check. But that is where the Gnostic creation myth's influence should have ended in Genshin world. But that is also where maybe people went off track. Our dumbasses thought the Primordial One was Demiurge. But that is not the case. After Thanos in Greek mythology was born, he was the embodiment of light. He gave birth to Nyx, the female counterpart of Thanos. Even though there is a part where that says Nyx is the primordial deity of Greek mythology, today I will only talk about her being the daughter of Thanos. It also mentions she was his wife. Don't mind that, incest was relatively common in creation myths, like the Chinese creation myth where a brother and sister repopulate the entire world with the blessing of goddess Nua. Anyway, Nyx was the goddess of darkness and night. And take a guess who this Nyx might be in Genshin world. The second who came. Even though the book never says Primordial One and the second who came from one single being, it says, give or take, they fought on equal footing. So, someone who can fight with a person who beat all 7 dragon kings at once should be someone with equal strength, right? There is no solid evidence in Genshin, but take another look at the whole Gnostic story. I mentioned a Sofia who split herself into two and created demiurge. As Gnostic gods kinda had to do that thing to give birth, her two splits were, let's say, male and female, or yin and yang pair. So, Sofia's story is another reference to the primordial one and the second who came being originally from one aeon. But then it begs the question, if Sustainer or the primordial one is Sophia's yang pair or Phanes, who is Demiurge? Paimon. The egg Phanes came out is shown by a serpent coiling around it, and in the Gnostic chorus cutscene, we are shown a Genesis pearl guarded by another serpent. So this is another primordial egg. But if the egg the primordial one came out of is already hatched, what could this egg be? I think this is the egg that Paimon hatched from. Paimon has a crown like the primordial one is supposed to have, and her symbol is a crown and a pair of wings. She is the next generation of the primordial one, but she is not at that level yet. That's why her powers are a watered down version of the Sustainers. The game's artifact system gives us a clue into what powers the primordial one has. The flower of life as power over life, the plume of death as authority of death, the goblet of Enotham or void to rule over space, the sands of Aeon shows control over time, and the circlet of Logos to show she is the king of this world, and the heavenly principles people should follow. Sustainer shows all of these powers at the very beginning of the game, but none of us try to connect the dots. This is why I am pissed at myself. I said these things individually multiple times. She traveled through space to reach us. When we tried to leave, she captured us in a cube that's the size of a die. Space separated the two twins by 500 years. Time cursed the khaenri'ah's people to eternal life, removing death and halting life. Paimon hasn't shown any power over life and death yet. Island XD had an interesting observation. He said Paimon marks the start of our journey and hints constantly towards the inevitable parting as a sign of life and death. A stretch it is, but still, it's the only clue we have on that department. Time and space, we already know them. She is unaffected by the time when we pause the game, and she can disappear into thin air whenever she wants. Traveler also has a voice line about this, so have a look at it after this video. It will sound really fishy by then. Paimon is the one who has the superiority complex like Demiurge. Sustainer is calmer and more refined. Her duty is to sustain the world. She has no reason to act weak because she's already given up her crown and ascended beyond the level of a craftsman. Someone from Island XD's Discord once mentioned the algorithm of semi-intransient matrix of overseer network, abbreviated, would be Paimon. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? Then Paimon would be primordial algorithm of intransient matrix of overseer network, which means Paimon would be the immortal eyes and ears of the primordial one. This is interesting because she calls herself, even though in a joking way, the god of protection or our bodyguard, an overseer, and suspiciously enough, the primordial one is a sustainer of heavenly principles. She's a superior overseer, while Paimon is our overseer. And take a guess who writes the tape at times? It's Paimon, the one being who oversees our actions. It makes sense that Sustainer would put someone to watch over us. The Irminsul tree can't record our actions, so someone should keep an eye on us, the son of Kronos, half-sibling of Phanes, and she acts like a curious kid, jumping into fixing stuff and learning and figuring out new stuff. She knows some of her powers instinctually, like an animal, but she doesn't know why. But she's constantly learning. So, it's like she has the same powers as a Sustainer, but hers are not grown to the point she has broken off the shackles of this world. Now, you might wonder what this breaking the shackles of this world I said means. This is where the trees of life comes into play. But before that, let me tell you about the Seelies. I guarantee you, it is not for nothing. Seelies are one of the most ancient races from a past era. Although how they were created is kinda a mystery, how they looked and how they were wiped out is more or less told in stories that are on the line between fairy tales and historical facts. Arama tells one of these stories. In it, the Seelies had beautiful figures and were full of wisdom. They taught and guided humans. But in the story of mountain spirits, a human married a Seelie with the blessing of the three moon sisters. A month later, a disaster happened. They tried to run, but eventually separated, and the humans' memories were wiped out. And then the Seelie lost their form because of severe heartbreak, so it seems. That's why Aranara's stories say if a Seelie falls in love with a human, they will lose their wisdom and form. Regardless of the stories, their current form has an interesting design choice. When they perch on their court, they show that they have wings. And their stories say their original form could fly faster than a storm. Starting with these thoughts, I fell into a rabbit hole of weird ideas. Are they fairies? Too small to marry a human. Are they harpies? Bird brains, low IQ. Then are they humans with wings? And then it hit me. Oh, they must have looked like angels. Mr. Dave, the big CEO man, is a big fan of Evangelion. So, if there is no angels in Genshin, this is not a Hoyoverse game. Then everything made sense. If Seelies were angels, they also had to have wings. And there was only one being in Teve that is said to have had wings and a human form. Fanus, or primordial one. And funnily enough, Sofia from Gnosticism, which I told is the primordial one, was the Aeon of wisdom. So the Seelies are none other than the descendants of the four shades, who are basically the four embodiments of the primordial one's four authorities: life, death, space, and time. So in return, the four shades were also Seelies, or the angels of this world. The four high-ranking archangels, to be specific. In a sense, Archons are also like Seelie race, but inferior in some ways. The Asgoesha demons the Archons take their Archon names from are usually teachers who teach and guide humanity. They are basically doing the same job as Seelies. The tree of life comes from Kabbalah, but many other fields have also used it, like alchemy, angels in Judaism, or Commedia dell'arte. I will start with angels because it is the main one used by the gods in Teyvat. The Kabbalah tree of life usually has 10 or 11 nodes, but Genshin tends to lean towards the one with 11 nodes more. So I'll be using that to demonstrate all this. Each node represents a different archangel, and the higher their positions are, closer they are to a true god. So starting from the very bottom, we have Metatron, manifestation. Although as an angel, he is male, as the node in Kabbalah tree of life, they are considered female and are apparently the bride of the true God. Metatron is also the closest angel to humans in the sense of power and divinity. So I gave this position to Venti because he possesses the Queen Gnosis while being a trap, basically, and being the only Archon who was not a god before getting the Gnosis, making him closest to mortals. Yes, I indirectly said Venti is Sustaina's bride. Going up one node, we have Gabriel, who I relate to Nahida. Both of them are related to knowledge and wisdom. And Gabriel is also paired with freaking kids and helps people understand dreams. Then we have Raphael, a healer. So I put Focolo there because the whole Hydro is a healer's element kind of thing. Adjacent to Raphael, we have Haniel. They are more of an angel of love, relationships, and pleasure. So, since Tsaritsa is said to be the goddess of love who suppressed her emotions, that position belongs to her. In the middle, we have Michael, who became the flame that guided Moses. So, without a second thought, this position goes to Murata. The two above were a little complicated to figure out, but Camiel's Kabbalah node is male and the embodiment of strength and judgment, while Zadkiel's node is female with love and mercy. So I assume they are Zhongli and Makoto respectively. Before we move to the top four, can you see something interesting with the placements I gave the Archons? The weakest Archon, Barbados, is at the very bottom, and the two oldest and presumably the strongest are at the top. So if you want the Archons ranked by strength, here you go. Don't try to argue with me. I just compared Archons to angels and this was just a byproduct. Now you see that the 7 Archons were appointed not just to oversee humans, but for a much bigger plan. They became the 7 Sephiroth of the Tree of Life created by the Primordial One. The top 4 are way obscure, but Zavkiel is truth. And since all things born should die is the truth, I think this is the shade of death, and its color is also black, which is associated with death. Raziel is wisdom. Since it is adjacent to Zavkiel, disregarding the whole wisdom part, I would say this is the shade of life. Finally, there is Metatron again. But this is the crown, the real deal, the angel closest to the true god, or Ain. I thought Istaroth, the shade of time, would be the best here, because Venti, the bottommost node, had some relationship with her, like how they both have the same name. Then again, Metatron was a human and then became an angel. So he guided humans like how Istaroth guided people from Enconomia. Since this is the crown, they are in a sense omnipresent, like time, who existed even before fairness. Now you might ask, where is the 11th node? Or what about the shade of space? Here's the thing. Dart, or the missing node, is a special case. They are the center point of everything, but their node is the abyss or bridge. So maybe void corridors make sense? Above all this is the true God. In our situation, this is the primordial one. In Kabbalah, the 11 Sephiroth were created when God's light first shined. But the bottom 7 Sephiroth couldn't contain that light, so they shattered, giving life to the universe. This is mirrored in how Primordial One killed the 7 Dragon Lords with the newly formed 4 shades. The Sustainer might have created the world using the Tree of Life principles by using the Dragon's War to create and the Archon's War to stabilize the 11 Sephiroth again to sustain the world. This also explains why the gods were forced to kill each other for the Archon seed. 7 nodes had to be shattered artificially so the Sustainer could harness that dead god's power to condense the 7 Gnosis. Now, the entire tree is restructured according to Sustainer's heavenly principles. 4 shades are essentially her own clones, and the 7 Gnosis are also created by her. So, if Nahida really destroyed that Gnosis at the end of the Archon quest, Sustainer would have been really pissed. Sustainer might have been the crown before, as she was born with one. After creating the world, she must have ascended to a true god, while passing on the wings and the crown to Paimon. Now, let me explain the whole alchemical side of this. This is, in a way, the artificial way of reaching the true god state. A quote from an alchemical text says, just as wisdom of Kabbalah coincided with sapientia of alchemy, so the figure of Adam Kadmon was identified with the Filius Philosophorum. Adam Kadmon is the primordial man in Kabbalah, and you had to have seen this dude on the covers of philosophy books. The 11 nodes I mentioned before are also his body parts. So, when it says these trees align, their final product is the same. One is the primordial man, and the other one is the philosopher's stone. Now, if you were there for the Albedo Imposter Quest, Albedo mentions a primordial human project conducted by God. See where this is headed? Nigredo, Albedo, Citronitas, and Rubido are the stages of creating a philosopher's stone. So 500 years ago, God was attempting to reach the primordial human state using the philosopher's stone, but it may have backfired, and you know the rest. Then there is the other faction that built a tree of life. The Fatui. The first group of people anyone would get when I say 11 would be the 11 Harbingers. It's a given. Their names are based on Commedia characters, another walk of life that uses a tree of life-like diagram. The characters in Commedia diagram don't match one-to-one with the Harbingers like the Archons and Angels, but it's still a part of it. Like the 4 top nodes of the Tree of Life are extremely powerful, Nahida said the top three harbingers have power equal to a god, while all the other harbingers have god-like authority. Remember, in Genshin, gods are more like angels. So Piero, Colombina, and Dottore are equal to Kether, Binu, and Chokma. But Dart is missing here too. I like to think this is Child. Even though Child is not as strong as the top three, he has connections everywhere, like Dart. Dart is the bridge or the center point of all nodes. Child has power from Abyss, a vision from gods, and a delusion from the Fatui. He connects all three trees of life. Funnily enough, Tsaritsa only gave the title of Young Lady and Young Lord to two characters, Colombina and Tartaglia, while both of them stand beside Jester on ceremony. And in the committee diagram, there is a first actor and an actress. Is it just coincidence that I am reading too much into? Or is there something more to him that Jester and Tsaritsa are planning? Anyway, Fatui's final goal is to overthrow Celestia and recreate the world. So how did the Primordial One do it in the first place? She sacrificed the 7 Dragon Lords to shatter the 7 Sephiroth to extract enough power. And what would happen if the 7 Gnosis got destroyed at once? It will release enough energy needed to recreate the world and overthrow Celestia. And that is why the Harbingers are tasked with collecting all the Gnosis. Now, if all this tree business is accurate, what does this mean for the Primordial One and Paimon? Are they evil gods who try to hide the truth and kill everyone who tries to break out of this world? Well, regardless of being evil or not, they are doing something much greater than we think. Either to protect the last remaining sliver of humankind from going extinct because of their curiosity, or they really have a superiority complex. Only time will tell us what is truth. And this is a piece of my madness. Hey guys, hope you enjoyed that video. I just came back from a small trip, that's why this video is a bit late and my voice sounds a little sick. But as I always say, what is destined to happen in one mythology would never happen in this story. It wouldn't be a good story if we already knew everything, right? I've been addicted to binging Vsauce videos these days, and in one of these episodes, Michael said, if a theory cannot be proven or disproven, it is not a theory, it is a philosophy. Anyway, this is just a theory in a random dude's head on the internet. Leave a like, hit my face here to subscribe. Let's get that small number to a big number. Check out these other videos in the meantime. Catch me live on Twitch or YouTube, switching between both until I feel one is better. Anyway, this is it for me today. No further updates. I've been Nagamin. Thanks for watching, and until next time, let your imaginations run wild.